Have happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Have happy Halloween. Silver Shamrock, Part 1. Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Longlegs, starring Micah Monroe, Blair Underwood, Alicia Witt, and Nicolas Cage, directed by Osgood Perkins. Now, the reason I said Part 1 is because I got this and another show coming up, and I'm going to spoil this one before I get into this review. This is a movie I have not seen yet. I've been meaning to try to go see it, but I haven't gotten a chance to yet. It is called Late Night with the Devil, because I hear that's scary, and I hear it's a good movie. So we'll see when we get there in about a few weeks away. And this is going to be before Halloween, so be prepared for that show. It'll be in the same week as Venom: The Last Dance. So let's get started with part 1 of 2 of the Halloween series. So I have seen this movie before, Longlegs, and I remember really liking this movie so much. It was good, and we'll see if it holds up from when I saw it back in theaters in July. Let's get into it. We open the movie like a video camera, all in red, and we get to a place filled with snow where it's around the 1970s, and a little girl at a young age of 9 who has a birthday coming up is approached by a strange man named Longlegs, played by Nicolas Cage, in a makeup filled with white makeup, and he reminded me of how Heath Ledger played the Joker in The Dark Knight. And we get opening credits rolling, and we move on to part 1, the letters, where it's around the 1990s, and the little girl is an adult named FBI agent Lee Harker, played by Michael Monroe, is assigned to go after Longlegs, and she is partnered with someone, and they knock on one house and after another until Lee's partner is shot dead, and Lee goes inside the house to go after the killer without seeing his face, which can be frightening. And kids, whatever you do, do not talk to fucking strangers, because it can be dangerous. And the cinematography is well shot, and I do like these characters, as Longlegs again reminded me of the Joker from The Dark Knight. Lee is asked questions based on images. What does she see? Like a Rorschach test, as she partners up with Agent Browning and Agent Carter, played by Blair Underwood, whom, other than this, I've seen in a terrible movie called Malibu's Most Wanted, which I won't talk about that bullshit, as he wants to talk about baseball with Lee, and she is no expert at it, and the shots make this movie work absolutely great, while Lee goes in a house and works on the case for the whole day until Agent Carter takes Lee to a bar to drink and to talk about what she learned from the case. And I'm getting a vibe from another movie called The Silence of the Lambs, put in a blender with The Dark Knight, and you've got this movie. Now, is it as good as those two movies? Absolutely not, honestly. And those are both movies I reviewed before. If you want to see my Batman review retrospective leading up to Joker, which before the second one comes out, or the Hannibal Lecter series, give it a look at it. It's pretty cool. Like, those movies were better than this, in my opinion, but let's see how the rest of it goes. Lee drives to Agent Carter home and meets his wife Anna and daughter Ruby as Lee goes in Ruby's bedroom, and Ruby learns Lee wanting to be an actress and how scary it is to be a lady in the FBI, and invites Lee to her birthday party, and Lee says she'll be there, which is a sweet scene. And the acting is great by these actors, as Lee gets home and calls her mother Ruth, played by Alicia Witt, whom I've seen in a couple of movies, as Lee checks up on her mother, and the audience learns she was a nurse for 8 years, and at some point hears someone knocking on her door, and she goes outside with her fucking gun and sees someone in her house, and I thought, oh shit, that's fucking scary. We move on to part 2, All the Other Things, as Lee sees a boom left for her by Longlegs, the book left for her by Longlegs. Well, she doesn't know his name quite yet, nor does she know who it is, as she tries to connect the dots of who Longlegs is until she gets called to a crime scene the next day, and she with Agents Carter and Browning, as they see a body that's been dead for about a month, and she calls her mother to tell her she won't be able to come to the house, and the dialogue is pretty well written, as the score was haunting at times, as well as Lee discovers Carrie-Anne Camera is one of the people involved in the case, and Lee goes to a psychiatric hospital where she meets Carrie-Anne. Now, some of the images are great, gross, and scary as hell, while I was getting a hell of a lot of vibes from the Silence of the Lambs. Lee and Carter are looking around the house, and when I said Lee and Carter, am I getting a Rush Hour vibe? Because those were the names of the characters Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker played in the 3 movies of Rush Hour. Go check those series out. Well, not the movies, but I reviewed them before, so go ahead and give those a look if you can. And they find a doll that I think is a real body of a little girl who happens to be Carrie-Anne, while Longlegs goes into a store with the cashier, who is the owner's daughter, and Longlegs freaks the cashier out and calls out her father, and I'm impressed by how creepy Nicolas Cage plays the character, as Lee visits the psychiatric hospital and sees her name with Agent Carter, and Lee talks with Carrie-Anne alone, and director Osgood Perkins, even though he's got a Stephen King movie called, what was it, The Monkey, that's coming out next year, I was impressed. He impressed me with what he has done with this movie, as there's scary situations that can happen in real life, and I'm looking forward to reviewing more of his work. I might review The Monkey when I go see that. I don't know. I have to debate on that so far. We get a disturbing flashback of how her father killed her mother, and a priest, and Carrie-Anne tells Lee off, which was sudden for damn sure. When Lee chats with her police chief, I can't help but wonder, is this taking place in the 1990s? Because he has a picture of a President Bill Clinton, which kind of threw me off at the police chief, as the police chief says to visit her mother, and the next thing you know, she does, and asks about what happened before her 9th birthday. After the opening sequence says she can't remember, how the fuck can you? And now, how the fuck can you remember a thing? How can you not remember a thing like that? Which was so goddamn dangerous, it would have haunted her for the rest of her life. But one thing I'll critique the movie on is, how does she not remember, like, I'm over it? It didn't make much sense to me. But at the same time, I'm believing she's bullshitting her way out of it. I'm just guessing. Lee looks up some memories of her childhood and remembers Longlegs as the man she met until Ruth comes out and says, "Don't talk to my little girl." And she finds a picture of Longlegs, and the FBI arrests Longlegs and goes to the interrogation room, and they watch a video of him acting strange, like singing Happy Birthday Lee Harker for 24 minutes straight, like a psycho he is. And the performance by Nicolas Cage is tremendous. Lee interrogates Longlegs as he believes in the devil and worships Satan, and is led to believe he had an accomplice. Lee does anyways. And he says to Lee to ask her mother, as she said she doesn't know anything until he smashes his head to death, which came out of the blue. And this is a slow burner of a scene in a total what the fuck kind of way. And that was better than any of the twists M. Night Shyamalan has done, with an exception of The Sixth Sense, of course. Carter is pissed and that they had something, but now they have nothing, as Lee brings Agent Browning so she can bring her mother, Ruth, in for questioning, as she looks for her mother until she hears a gunshot by Ruth because she killed Agent Browning, and learns the truth about her mother, and Lee confronts her mother as she almost shoots a statue kid. And honestly, I thought that was a real kid. And we get back to the video camera flashback to the 1970s, and learns her mother worships Satan and tortured her mother when Lee was almost a 9-year-old girl. And she got a devilish doll from the church for her 9th birthday, and I thought, oh shit, she might be with the fucking devil's worshippers. And Lee wakes up and gets a phone call and goes to the birthday party of Ruby. Remember her from the beginning of the movie? And Lee drives to the Carter household, and Agent Carter and Anna seemed possessed, and I believe Ruby isn't quite yet, as she has the doll while Ruth is there. And Carter and Anna go in the kitchen to cut the cake, and he ends up killing her off screen. And Lee asks Ruth, why is she doing this? And she believes they're all going to hell, and it's for Lee so she can grow up in a boy. The devil has some ways to bullshit people as she shoots Carter dead, as well as Ruth, aka Lee's own mother, and can't get the doll killed, and Lee gets Ruby out of the house, and she becomes the next devil worshiper. And this climax has some twists and turns but it's scary. That is scary and much better than anything M. Night Shyamalan does as a twist, in my opinion. Now it's time for my rating. I'll give this movie a 7.8 out of 10. I did get a lot of vibes from The Dark Knight based on the character Nicolas Cage plays, and The Silence of the Lambs based on the detective stories. As it's a too good movie to put in a blender, and you've got this movie. And now, is this as good as those two films? Absolutely not. As there were times the shots made this movie look absolutely frightening to the point it works great. The acting is great, but these actors, and I like the characters they play in this throughout, as this was a slow burner. And there's some movies I can take with that, and others I don't. But this worked for me, as this twist is better than anything M. Night Shyamalan has made in his other films that were mediocre to bad. But the writing in this is pretty well written. The movie is fucking scary, and some shots that'll bug you for days, and it works great for a horror film that's a slow burner. And this is a recommendation to watch during Halloween and before I get to Late Night with the Devil by the end of the month. Despite I've never seen that movie, to be honest, but we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm in for a treat for this one, I've heard. I hear it's scary and pretty good, but this movie works great as a slow burner. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and when we get closer to Halloween, I will be back with Late Night with the Devil. And until then, Happy Halloween! Part 1.